I want to real quickly make a note. So since I did the audio edits for this, I have to like trim some of the stuff between the music. And for the past, I want to say a couple months, the moment before going into the main topic has begun with Ben going, "Yee."
Yeah. Yeah.
Did I do that this time or?
Yeah, and that made me laugh because just before I played the music, I go, "Yeah."
Yeah.
All right.
I didn't realize I've been doing that the past couple months. Shit.
No, it's fine. We are here. We're finally here. Our journey from our journey in the Matrix, our Matrix extravapalooza, is come to an end with a review of the Matrix Resurrections. Full spoilers from here on out. It's been a month. You should have seen it by now.
We're going back to the Matrix.
All right. Shall we get into it then? Who wants to go first?
I think this movie's pretty good. I like it a whole lot. I don't think it's perfect, but I really love it.
I also don't think it's perfect. I also really love it.
Sparks and I have a cheat because we're the only two on the panel who put it on our top 10s.
That's true.
Put
it very high.
Yep.
Yes. I also agree. I love this movie. It's not perfect, but I love this movie. And Ben, just say the same thing and we'll move on.
Well, I'm not going to say the same thing, but I do have the same sentiment that I had a really good time. I enjoyed this movie. I don't understand why it's getting all the hate it is, but then, of course, I see who's writing all the hate comments. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Other than that, it's a fine movie, and I had fun with it. It was I enjoyed it. I highly enjoyed it. I'm really bummed I didn't get to see it. I didn't have time to see it the second time on HBO Max.
Yeah, I made a point.
Real helpful having it available at any time, all the time.
Yeah,
it's
when I'm bummed I missed seeing it in theaters.
Yeah.
Okay. Where do we want to start with this one?
Well, we got to go back to the Matrix.
I really like how this movie opens. It kind of opens in a similar fashion to the first film, where it's like you think that Trinity's the bad guy. In this case, you think that Bugs, who we're hearing, is the person in the chair, and it kind of subverts the expectation, being like, no, Bugs is watching something strange, a mystery.
Oh, interesting. I didn't get that read when I watched it, but sure, I agree.
Well, maybe I'm wrong then.
No, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying like that's not that. I did not think that Bugs was the person in the chair. That's all I mean.
Got it. Marty, in the chat, have you guys given a ship in a bottle yet? Has that tier been cracked? No.
Nope.
No, it has not.
It's still waiting on it's waiting on the shelf at Hobby Lobby. It's waiting for me to pick it up. You got to get that tier, baby.
I mean, I gave Brandon a ship in a bottle for Christmas one year, but that's about it.
Years ago.
That's true.
There it is.
Oh, that's so tiny. Oh, man, this made my life so much easier. I was going to get a big one, like handcrafted.
No, you got to get a big one.
No. I
cannot tell you how hard
because you committed to this.
No, you're right.
Okay. Side tangent. I cannot tell you how hard it was to find a stupid ship in the bottle that was small enough and in my budget, because every time I looked up ship in the bottle on Amazon, it's like these giant ass ships in bottles, or the Lego ship in a bottle. I'm like, there's a Lego ship in a bottle with this.
I would have also accepted that.
That one's cute.
Oh yeah, I was talking to Zara about it. I was like, hey, how about this small? She's like, yeah, he'll like that. And I was like, I saw a Lego one, and apparently she was looking at that one for you too.
Oh, you guys are so cute.
Yeah. Anyway,
Matrix. Yeah.
So yeah, the opening, it is fun, especially like I assume a lot of people before this movie came out rewatched all the movies. But if you didn't, like, it is still fun to like. It opens like the Matrix, and it's almost shot for shot like the Matrix.
Very close.
Very close. And then it's like the same dialogue, and then you realize that's not Agent Smith. That's Yahya Abdul-Mateen or whatever his name was. And I'm like, oh, this is wacky. And then Trinity does her thing, and I'm like, that's not Trinity.
He has a really fun role in that scene when he gets the pill, when he takes the red pill, and he just goes and he just pops up. Like, oh,
he's like drunk.
Agent White.
Yeah,
together.
I guess, like, I want to talk about the discourse around this movie to talk about this movie.
Yeah,
because like the people who don't like this movie, and I get it, like people who don't like this movie tend to not really like the sequels very much, because they also weren't really the Matrix that they were looking for. Mm-hmm. They were closer, but they weren't what they were looking for.
I talked to some people today. I won't name all of them, but from the Downright group, and a lot of them didn't like it because they honestly just found it kind of boring.
Sure.
And which I get. Like a lot of the criticisms that I'm seeing, I can agree with. It's just one of those things where like it doesn't bother me as much as other people.
Sure.
Because I do think this is one of those situations where like you're going into a new Matrix movie, and those other Matrix movies are the greatest action movies of all time. So there is some anticipation, expectation there, and it's just how much are you willing to let that go, because that is not the movie she was making.
Absolutely.
Well, absolutely not the movie she wanted to make. This is not an action movie whatsoever.
Which is why I want to talk about that discourse, because like I do think it's fair. I think it's fair to have certain expectations. It's just that I didn't want more Matrix the same.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And then for like if you felt that way, great.
Yeah.
But if you wanted more Matrix that felt like classic Matrix,
so
you came to the wrong place.
Just real quick, like behind the scenes of this movie, like Zach Penn was working on a Matrix prequel movie that would have been The Force Awakens, bringing the old with the new, like what every single franchise is doing, right? But luckily, the Wachowskis had a right to refusal for the next sequel. So they brought Lana in as like, hey, we're gonna do another Matrix movie, which they say in this movie itself, which is crazy. We're gonna make another movie. Are you in it or not? And they had to go to her first, and she's like, all right, well, I'm gonna make it. And then they made an anti-sequel.
So they went to Lana and Lily.
Yeah.
And Lily didn't want to.
No, she's burnt out.
And Lana had an idea. And the context of this, because I think it is relevant and important, a lot of people have talked about it, is that they'd recently lost their parents, and then a close friend as well. And for Lana, being able to bring back Neo and Trinity was a comforting story. It was something that they felt a call to do this. And I think that very much that's very clear. Like a lot of people are getting focused on the meta textual nature, and like sometimes in the wrong way. I think about the fact that the Matrix in here kind of vilifies the idea of a sequel to the Matrix trilogy. But I think that's people interpreting that as saying like, therefore this movie is stupid and mandatory and not worth having been made because I didn't want to.
Yeah.
And that's the message they get from that. And I'm like, that's not the point. The point is that that is a structured narrative of analyzing how other sequels are handled and how the sequel could have been handled, but the sequel was not handled that way. It's flying against the face of that. And it was Lana's desire, really, that I think that the main focus of the story is not that metatextual nature, but the fact that like I just wanted to give Neo and Trinity
a happy ending.
Yeah. And that's what the movie's about.
Yeah,
and
that's what one of my biggest notes, and I don't know if it's directly response to the criticism lobby towards the film that I've seen, but like there's a lot of talk about the round table of the video game when they were trying to break the story for the Matrix 4 video game, and it's like a lot of people read that as like, oh yeah, they're just damning this movie, they're damning all sequels, they hate everything. That, and like that's not the read I have. The read I have is that the Thomas Anderson has felt so passionately that he should be there, and that's the Lana Wachowski parallel, because she knew that anybody else who would do the Matrix would misunderstand why the Matrix works, and she knew like I need to be there. I need to make sure that what the Matrix is still there, because someone else isn't going to do it. People don't understand it. This is going to be my final say on what the Matrix means, what the Matrix is about.
It's so important that we have first that boardroom scene, because if there was the next scene, which I'm about to talk about, I would feel differently. But there's that boardroom scene of like, what is the Matrix? Bullet time, and you got to think smart and sexy, and like all those buzzwords, right? And like there's definitely a lot of people who thought that scene was annoying, and I get it. It's kind of the point. That is people telling Lana Wachowski what her own movie should be about. We cut to the people on the ship, Lexi, Bugs. They tell the same story of like, no, you don't know how much this means to me. Neo, your story changed my life. Those are two aspects of the same story, just in totally different directions.
Right.
And I think that is so brilliant, because she's saying a lot of people are missing that second part where like, I'm not damning the fans. I'm damning the people who don't respect the movie. There are fans who love my movie.
Right.
Like they're not damning the whole audience.
That's what Bugs is.
Bugs is the audience character who loves the Matrix. Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's so much personal stuff in this film. It's hard to not recognize it as like a personal piece of art. Like, I think Matrix Reload and Revolutions are cool. I think The Matrix is art.
Yeah.
I think this one is art.
Yeah.
There's something very there. that's so personal about this one that it's hard to escape from. I mean, the whole thing you were just talking about with Bugs, the whole reason of like the moment between Neo and Bugs is Lana pulling from their own personal history about the moment when they wanted to commit suicide, but a stranger just locked eyes with them for an extended amount of time and they felt seen and it saved their lives. And like that's the exact adaptation of what that moment is. And there's so much of that put into this film that it's hard not to be moved by it, even though it's created in the system that is. I think that its only issue is being confined by the perception that people have of what a Matrix film should be, which is unfortunate because I think those exact things you're talking about in like the roundtable discussion and everything, if Keanu Reeves' character of Thomas Anderson were working on any other property that weren't The Matrix, and they were analyzing that scene would be fine, and it wouldn't be criticized in that same way, like just some famous IP. Because what it's really talking about is both the isolation of being a creative and this really enforcing capitalist idea of what you need to do when consumerism overtakes art, and also, more importantly, the sense of adult isolation.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the reasons I love that montage is like, so it's those really powerful shots of Keanu Reeves laying on a bed with 2 pillows on him to comfort himself, or sitting in the bathtub with the duck on his head.
Just eating the biggest steak and just like, I'm complicit. This is my life, man. Like
he got Cypher's dream and he hates it.
Absolutely. That is
because he feels alone.
That is what's so sinister about this new Matrix. Like the old Matrix is like you're living like a mundane 9 to 5. This new one, it's like, no, we're gonna torment you so hard that like you were this close to your dreams, but you'll never get it. Well, that is so diabolical.
I wanna ask because I have a whole thing that I want to get into about the analyst versus the architect. Do we want to wait to get there? Do we want to talk about some of the things, or can I do it here?
I feel this is like free flowing.
Yeah, I think we gotta just kind of move around.
Yeah,
so that's what I kind of enjoy about like the analyst, right? What you were talking about, Ryan. Like this Matrix isn't perfect. Like the architect was an artist, right? He was a man who like made the perfect world, indistinguishable completely from 1999, from the world of 1999. You cannot tell the difference. But the analyst doesn't care about all that. There's flaws within this Matrix everywhere. The code is in the wind. You can see like
results.
He cares about results. You know, like the birds always flying in the same pattern, the same time of day. Like that's the analyst being like, you didn't need to make it perfect. You just kind of needed to torture them just a bit.
It's honestly, it's the good place. I made a joke a while ago. Like, it's the good place. It's like we're gonna torture you as much as you can, but before you, just enough so you still take it, but you can't break.
Yeah.
And that's like the longing, like the whole thing of like Trinity and Neo being like the core of the Matrix, like being the plus side and the negative side of a battery.
Damn, I love that concept so much.
It's such a great idea. And it's like, again, it's like, I never want Lana Wachowski to make a movie she never wants to make, but like, I love where this movie ends, but it's also like a perfect ending.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like, it is the cap of like, no, they got their happy ending. That's all you need. I think it's awesome. And like the analyst is, first of all, Neil Patrick Harris is awesome. He's so fun.
Yeah.
It's cool to see him be like a super slime ball, because like while he's like Barney and stuff, he's still like a good dude. Like it's fun to see him just be like, no, I'm just a bad guy. Well,
yeah, no, I get you.
He's like truly like, I'm here to make you miserable and get like pluses on my bonuses. And it's just really cool to see like an artist's view on the Matrix. Like it's a fun. I really love the world building in this movie.
Yeah.
So speaking of the world building, one of the things I actually really enjoyed about the Matrix, especially the first half of it, was the whole time I'm thinking, what is going on? Because I remember one of my issues with the new trailers is like how they are they gonna answer if Trinity or Neo, like how are they gonna bring Trinity back? She died. What are they gonna do? What happened to Neo? Did he lock himself in the Matrix? What are these questions? And then you see like the first shot of Neo / Thomas at his work desk with all the Matrix memorabilia behind him. It's like, what's going on here? Like the classic Matrix mind game was being played, especially with like the blue pills and everything. Is like, what the heck is going on? Like, I
really like how they did the blue pill, red pill sequences in this one, where there was the bit with what I talked about in the beginning with this Agent Smith, Abdul Mateen. And Bugs is like, okay, normally there's a whole spiel, but we don't have time for that. So here, just take this. It's the red pill. It's going to disconnect you from the Matrix. We're good. I was like, that's a really cool concept all in all. First off, you kind of played off this idea of the blue pill, red pill. You've introduced the idea that you can now do this to programs.
Yeah.
And free programs from the Matrix, which is awesome. And then the whole thing of like the modal I'm like, there's a lot happening. There's a lot of world building just in this 10 minutes.
There
Yeah,
there
the
is.
global thing took me a while to be like, oh, okay, it's like there's a simulation happening inside of a simulation.
Mhm.
So for a split second, I thought I was almost under the impression that that Anderson's game was the first 3 movies.
Hmm.
And that this is what we're seeing in the real world. We're seeing someone who essentially made the Matrix, but instead of the film making it to a film, they turn into a hit series of video games, and they're now trying to make something else. Especially that line where you get the boss, or like the CEO of their company is like, our parent company, Warner Bros. And like, okay, so this is like real actually happening, right? But then later on, it's like, oh shit, you got me. Like like Resurrections, they got me because I thought, okay, so this is the direction we're going with. Okay, I can live with this.
The Warner Brothers drop, like honestly, like it takes a lot of balls to put that in your own movie. Like truly, like it is like this is one of the boldest sequels ever made. Whether you like it or not, but like in terms of artistic integrity on a $200 million movie, there's nothing like this. Like no, like not to bring up like Marvel or DC, but like this is unlike any of those movies. Like this is a pure craft, and like I'm just glad that they got like this movie got made, because again, like I see the 7.58 version of this movie. That's The Force Awakens, where yeah, you got Keanu and you got Fishburne, but you also got new characters and they're passing the torch. And I'm just like, I'm so glad that we don't have to do that for everything. I'm so grateful for that.
And
Yeah,
also,
I've been
glad...
talking. Sorry, Ben. I've been talking a lot about in recent years how much I miss, like the epic love stories of the early 2000s, late 90s. Like these idea, like these people that are so in love that they can't take their hands off of each other. Neo and Trinity, Rachel and Evie and Rick, Elizabeth and Will, and Neo and Trinity are such an important couple, and to make their epic love story the core of this film, the core of the Matrix itself, was such a cool idea of being like, kind of like reclaiming the concept of what this Matrix is. It would never work as a passing the torch Matrix, because it has to be about the love of Neo and Trinity.
Yeah, and that whatever that Force Awakens movie would have been, wouldn't have been that.
I'm borrowing from one of the conversations Patrick Willems has had with different podcasts about Matrix Resurrections, and I don't remember which one, so I'm sorry. But I'm borrowing when I say that I really love the comparison, and I think it's very apt that this movie is essentially Toy Story 4. And I do think that that's very, very accurate. And I think like where this succeeds for me, where Toy Story 4 didn't quite work for me, is that Neo and Trinity, in my opinion, not necessarily like it's not a love story, but like Neo and Trinity of Toy Story is Buzz and Woody. So separating them at the end of Toy Story 4 didn't quite feel right for me, because Bo and Woody hadn't been a whole thing, although they did a very good job of manufacturing the love story for them to make 4 work. This works really well for me because Neo and Trinity were always the thing of the Matrix films, if you were paying attention. And it really was driven home to me by a different podcast I was listening to that I'm not going to drag, and I really like them most of the time, but like all of them didn't enjoy this movie. And one of the main criticisms that they all agreed on is what they wanted out of a 4th Matrix film was for them to finally beat the machines. And I'm like, well, that was just never the point. That was never the point.
That would have been so... Again, after the talk of like Revolutions, like that would have been just like regressing.
Exactly. Yeah. Like you missed the whole point of Revolutions if that was your feeling about a 4th Matrix. That you wanted to see them finally overtake the machines. Like you missed the whole thing.
They didn't watch that last movie because literally the machines and Neo team up to beat Smith.
Right.
Like they hang out as buddies.
That's the thing. We compare a lot to like The Force Awakens, and like if you think about it, what this does better for me, as far as like the original trilogy going to The Force Awakens, or in this case, The Matrix Resurrections, what this film does really well for me is that it doesn't feel like it was just shitty from the moment we left them to the moment we got back. Like they were constantly always at war. This was like there was peace. It happened.
It worked.
It worked. There was peace for many years.
Not only that, like there is peace.
Yes, there is currently peace.
Yeah. There is peace. If people want out of the Matrix, they can come out of the Matrix. There is peace. The only thing that they are unwilling to do is let Neo and Trinity out of the Matrix. Yeah. Outside of that, they're upholding everything they said.
And because technically, Neo and Trinity, they don't know what happened to their bodies.
No.
And they don't have the agents after them. They don't have all that kind of stuff. Now, people have suspected that Neo is somewhere in the Matrix, but they haven't been able to find him.
Yeah.
He's DSI'd or whatever.
Right, exactly.
Like
they changed his DSI.
Like the only fighting that we see is fighting between machines. That's
Yo,
right.
there's an awesome flashback of the Machine Civil War. Give me that Animatrix movie. I don't need any more Matrix sequels. There's a 60-year gap of awesome Civil War reconstruction history between those species of humans and machines. I want all of that.
Because there was a power shortage because enough people wanted to come out of the Matrix. So they needed to expensively refund the analyst's pitch and throw out the architect, throw out the oracle, throw out the old style of the Matrix, let the analysts start over with Neo and Trinity at the center and create a Matrix that people wouldn't want to leave because they're not breaking the peace contracts if people want to stay.
Yeah.
And the analysts found the way to do that. And I'm like, that's brilliant, because Brandon's exactly correct. Like, Force Awakens is a perfect example of this, because one of the biggest downers about Force Awakens and kind of that whole sequel trilogy is that they defeat the Empire, and then you just kind of get told, yeah, but they're basically doing the same thing again with the exact same kind of group.
Yep.
You know, like it really was all for nothing. They live for 30 years still fighting the exact same kind of forces, just under a new name.
Yeah.
And that sucks, because there's just no good political buildup for that or explanation ever.
Nope.
And that's a bummer. That's a big bummer about the sequel trilogy. But here, the piece that Neo made at the end of the movie mattered. It mattered in a big way. And I love that. I love that Neo has that moment where he's like, I feel like it's better. It's worse. I feel like I did it for nothing. I feel like everything's junk. And they're like, no. Everything is really good.
Let me show you Sabebe and Kujaku
and strawberries.
And strawberries. Yeah. Not strawberries. With like also one of the coolest ideas, like in a sci-fi movie, of having programs become physical in the real world through like nanomachines. That's a brilliantly cool idea that I don't know if I've seen before in that kind of way. It's awesome.
So one of the things I also really love about this movie is the fact that it shows you a glimpse of the future, but it's not like, okay, bad analogy. Ready Player 2. That takes place in about a year and a half later after the first book. Things just go from bad to worse. This one is like, yo, things aren't the best, but things have gotten so much better than they were. We have partnerships with the machines. We're friends with them. We can make foods that we haven't eaten in X amount of hundreds of years, possibly. Here's a freaking strawberry. That strawberry scene, I was like, oh, damn, look at you.
Yeah, they have a moment where they're just like, how would you make this? Well, we managed to figure out how to make the code of a strawberry that's in the Matrix manifested into like a seed so we could grow strawberries. I'm like, whoa, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah.
Like, and also one of my biggest things I was like kind of was the fact that Lawrence Fishburne wasn't in the movie. I was really bummed. I was like, no offense to Yahya Abdul-Mateen, I absolutely love him in this movie. And then when we get to the scene in not Zion, but Zion 2, Io, thank you.
It's the opposite of 01.
But when we get to Io and we see a statue and we see old Niobe, I'm like, okay, makes sense. And then the new and Yahya Abdul is essentially Morpheus, but it's not a digitized Morpheus, but he's taking up the name because he also stands for what Morpheus stands for.
More than that, but Sparks, what were you saying? What were you going to say?
So I think that it was really a wise choice to pick Niobe instead of Morpheus to be the leader in Io, because the thing is, and I think that this is very, very true. If Morpheus is the leader when Neo gets there, he will do whatever Neo wants to do.
Yeah,
there will be no pushback. And then it's just, okay, so there's no conflict. There's no, I will mount all the forces of Io to do whatever Neo wants to do, even if that's maybe unwise. But it keeps the stakes low and personal for this film, which is weird for a sequel, but it's true. The stakes are lower and personal, because really what's at stake isn't the civilization of humanity or what Io has constructed. All that's at stake is Neo and Trinity's freedom. That's it. That's all that's at stake. There's nothing else that they're fighting.
Yeah, because like that's why Niobe is so against it. Because like, hey, we're at peace now. If you go do this thing, you're gonna f everything I've built for.
But importantly, Niobe becomes a representation of a mentality that we're seeing a lot of like social pushback on right now, which is the mentality of I got mine, forget everybody else who comes after me. Because Niobe, while they used to pull people out of who were feeling like the red pill and wanted to come out of the Matrix, Niobe's pretty much shutting the door. Bugs has a line where they acknowledge that that's what Niobe has done. Niobe's like, we're kind of done. Like, we've pulled everybody out. We're going to pull out.
Yeah.
Now we're just making civilization work because we're not going to fight. We're not going to push it with the machines anymore.
I love that character choice, and it's so good for Niobe because
you wouldn't get it with Morpheus.
And you wouldn't get it with Morpheus because he'd be like, "Oh my god, the guy that I worshipped my entire life."
Well, that's one of the things that I really like about Morpheus, not posthumously Morpheus, but like the idea that he was so unwilling to waver from the fact that what Neo did could be undone. That he was just like, no, Neo, he did it. That's the end of the revolutions. He did it. Like the fact that he just couldn't budge. That's what cost Zion. Mm-hmm. That's what ultimately ended Zion. Is such an interesting poetic moment.
Yeah,
because like
and Niobe, like you said, Niobe saw the writing on the wall. Like, no, the Oracle told us something worse is coming. Then she's just gone. There's a machine civil war. Something's worse is coming. We need to figure something out.
And Morpheus in charge. We would not have gotten Io in the way that it is.
And Morpheus,
because he's anti-machine. He wouldn't see past it.
And Morpheus would need to be cleared out because Morpheus would be the one person who would never stop until he found Neo.
Yeah.
So it really does work for me that Lawrence Fishburne isn't there in that capacity. Yeah. And it works for me that Lawrence Fishburne isn't there for the modal program of Morpheus that's created.
Because he's not just Morpheus, he's also Agent Smith.
So that part gets a little funky
confused
for me.
by that part, to be honest.
So here's the thing. I really like Mateen in this role. Yeah. I like the idea of this Morpheus program that's not real Morpheus, but is Neo's perception of Morpheus manifested to save himself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think that's really cool. It's very clever. It's a very good way for Neo to have subconsciously created a way for him to escape the Matrix.
Yeah.
I think that's very, very smart and wise. My thing about it is that when they make that explanation that he is a combination of the two men who made Neo, Morpheus and Smith, I wish that there was something more in his character that represented Smith.
He's not,
but he's
so funny.
He's so like he's so much more in like a fun Morpheus direction without any of that lingering Smith stuff. Once he red pills, that I'm like, okay, I guess he's an amalgamation of those two people, but kind of not. That part I felt was a little unclear, which really just comes down to I wish that they had done a little more to give him something a little Smith in him. Maybe a little bit weirder of a relationship with Neo.
Yeah, I feel that way about Groff.
So I don't feel as weird about Groff because Groff literally is Smith.
Yeah.
And I feel like it works okay there, and it's not bothering me.
What I kind of like to elaborate on that moment. Like I agree with what you're saying about Abdul Mateen. Like but I have the same issue with Groff. When Groff is activated to be Smith, like when he got when he gets activated, when Smith is activated, he keeps calling him Tom, and there's like nothing of Hugo Weaving's performance in Jonathan Groff. There's a disconnect to the character. While I like what they do with the character, I wish he kind of leaned into a little bit more of the Hugo Weaving mannerisms. Maybe not all the way, but like in a sense, kind of keep it there when he's activated. So when he knows that he's Agent Smith.
Yeah, I get that too. I think that there are moments where he does lean into it. I like that he is, because he is a program and he's been reprogrammed into the Matrix, even though he is still Smith, he's a new program version of Smith. So like him calling him Tom, there's a different sensibility to him and history. And that works for me more than necessarily like the way they describe how Morpheus is supposed to function as like an amalgamation of the two. Because that feels like he should be pulling from personality traits that Neo manifested of them into the thing. But I think that Groff does a good job of having his moments where a little bit of that Hugo Weavingness comes forward. Ultimately, my whole thing is that like I didn't want to see Bane 2.0.
Yeah.
I didn't want to see that performance again. And that's kind of why I'm like, I'm glad that I feel like I recognize that this is Smith. There's enough there.
The first line he says, it's very clearly like, the oblivious thing. Like that's Smith.
Where he's saying the same line, but like, I wish I remembered the line, but there's a specific moment when they're doing the exchange right before the Merovingian shows up, where he says something and it has the exact same cadence of Hugo Weaving, and it's there, but he's not doing an impression. And I am glad that it didn't turn into a Hugo Weaving impression, because at that point, just have Hugo Weaving, which is what they wanted to do, but scheduling didn't allow.
Yeah,
right. That's what I'm saying. It's kind of upset. It's unfortunate we couldn't get Hugo Weaving, but like for me, I don't want him to be doing an impression. I just wanted more. And for you, you're saying that what they do is enough, but for me, I don't think it was. I just wanted him to just do a little bit more to kind of
keep
it
get
going,
that.
keep it going, like because he's unrecognizable as Agent Smith outside of dialogue for me.
I will say, like, I enjoy Jonathan Groff as Smith. I think he is slightly unnecessary to the film.
Yes.
And while I enjoy his presence, like the only thing I really, really like about it is the fact that like he is the thing that helps free Neo and Trinity.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a cool, like, ultimate come around on that character.
Yeah.
But that's like a Goku Frieza moment. But like, other than that, I don't feel like he needed to be there. I don't think the purpose of why the analyst would restore him is very well explained. It feels like that's just running another risk of a thing that could wake Neo up.
Yeah.
I really like tried to grab it and pay attention to it, that like it has something to do with their balance to each other, that he also used as something to help confine Neo and fuel the Matrix. Like there's almost a sense of like Neo won't stray too far from wherever Smith is because he feels a latent responsibility to be where Smith is, because he has to kind of like police him.
Well, that's what they call it. That's what they call it. It's like a chain.
Yeah, I think he's almost like he was like unknowingly he's like his bodyguard in a way.
Yeah. And like I guess I kind of get that, but that ultimately feels like it flies in the face of everything the analyst says he's doing, because he says his whole thing is about feelings and fictions. That sounds like him balancing an equation still, which is like I just like, aren't you running a greater risk by having Smith in there to begin with? Why would you want that kind of program running?
Right, especially because you already have a handler program for Neo that's doing a fine job. So I kind of realized it the second time over what you're talking about, Sparks. The second time I watched it, I kind of realized that like there's a moment when right before the Merovingian shows up where he talks to Neo, is like, in order for me to be free, I've got to kill you or whatever. Or I can't stop. There's something there's some conflict that he's there for, but at the end of the film, he's like, I was freed when Neo was freed. I was like, that already happened by the time the Merovingian thing showed up.
So what he says is what he wants to do is he wants to go after the analyst. He wants to punish him for imprisoning him, for chaining him up.
I remember that.
And he says, I need to go do that. Just stay out of my way. That's what he says. He's like, he's not after Neo at all. And Neo says, I just got to get Trinity. I don't want to fight you either. And he's like, but that's the problem. See, if you go to him, then he gets you. He knows you're going to go there. And when he gets you, he resets everything. And I go back to being chained. And he doesn't want that. And Neo says, well, that sounds like conflict. Yeah. And so then they have to fight. So that's why that happens. But his goal is just to punish the analyst.
Mm-hmm. I feel like he could have been working together.
Yeah, I want to talk about Jonathan Groff real quick, because
then they ultimately do, right?
They do at the end.
That's the whole thing, is that he's like, I guess I'll just interfere, because he's about to lose. That's the whole reason Smith shows up when he does. He's about to lose. They're going to hold Neo and Trinity. They're going to make it so that they can't reconnect with each other and blow the Matrix apart. So he's like, no, I interfere because I'm in trouble of being imprisoned.
Yeah. He is in this movie kind of just like a chaos agent, Smith. Which I like.
It's fine. I like that. Honestly.
Yeah. It does feel like he is like, if you did take him out of the movie, not much would change. But I do like Jonathan Groff, because there was a line where it's like, like they gave me like a new body. He's like, he's new hot Smith. So for me, him not being like exactly as like not even the mannerisms, but like as like stoic, made sense to me. And I think Tom actually works, because like he's still calling him like by his first name, like he's still like disrespectful, and instead of calling him by his real name,
right?
He's just more fly about it, because he's more of like a cool business guy.
Yes.
So that aspect did work for me. Also, I just like seeing Jonathan Groff on screen. I think he's fun.
I liked it too. Yeah. I love Gita Jackson's assessment from Waypoint of this movie's really just about two gay guys who are mad at each other because Neo doesn't love them the most.
That's true. Yeah.
The handler programs for Trinity is I believe one of the directors of John Wick.
It's Chad Stahelski.
Yes, Chad Stahelski is the director of John Wick.
Also
Neo's stuntman for the earlier Matrix films. Handsome Chad.
He's handsome and he's talented.
Real quick, Pi said in the comments that he enjoyed that this film portrayed more optimism and reason to hope.
Yeah.
So I agree.
That's one thing that I love about this movie, and like the thing. So when they get up to after like the big bicycle chase and the suicide swarmers, which is crazy. I think that's a cool new aspect of having like swarms, having like bots instead of expelling the energy to take over people, you just put a bunch of bots everywhere.
Right.
I thought that the ending, I thought they were gonna die, and that was like, even though it's sad, it is their happy ending the way they wanted to go out when they were jumping off the building. And I was like, I was crying for sure, thinking like we can't go back, and then like they would just die and like the Matrix would be over, and that would be their happy ending the way they wanted. I'm like, God, it sucks. Like, but it works. And then she started flying. I'm like, okay.
Can I tell you? So one of my favorite beats of this whole movie is when they get to the rooftop and Trinity sees the sun and she says beautiful.
Yeah.
But the reason she's saying beautiful is because Trinity has seen the real sun,
Mhm.
the only person in the world who has seen the real sun. And because she's seeing a fake sunrise, she sees the code. And when she sees the code, she's able to access.
And she's
the
breathing
source.
in and out, and like the code's going around her, and like the birds.
Yes.
And very, very pretty.
I love that.
Very
I
cool.
love that as a callback to that moment, because I think that moment's so pretty in Revolutions, and that it's like, because Trinity has seen the real sun, Trinity can now see through the code.
Okay, so before we talk about all the positive stuff with the emotions, I do want to talk about some of my negatives.
Well, you brought up Trinity. You brought up Trinity. I want to mention one thing about like Sparks. You were talking about the sunrise. Similarly to what you're talking about with the sunrise, and to what Ryan said, with like the cheering when Trinity flew. When they reconnect in the coffee shop was the moment in the theater where I almost elbowed my seatmates because I wanted to cheer so badly, because that was such an incredible moment from the moment where she says, my name's Trinity, you son of a bitch, or whatever, and then the two of them being like pulled away as they're trying to reach each other. Tears. Loved it.
Yeah, there's a lot of Renaissance kind of looking art moments. That's one of them, like them being pulled away from each other by all the police. It's almost like a Renaissance painting moment. There's the moment where Neo's stepping off the balcony and you have all the people like reaching for him, crying behind him. That's almost very Renaissance-y. A lot of very interesting framing bits like that.
I'll be positive for one more second. Because it's probably like one of my favorite shots in the movie, but like when they're jacking in Trinity into Bugs, and then it's like the trifecta of Bugs Trinity, and like they're interspliced between fighting, and it's like Jessica Henwick's screams are so guttural, and I'm like, dude, this is so freaking cool. Oh my god, it's so cool. It's unfortunate that I feel like most of the action in the rest of the movie is pretty bad.
So you brought up the action. That is my biggest negative, and I know, like, that's not the type of movie she wanted to make. Totally get that, appreciate that, love this movie. But there is a sense that The Matrix was a cut above action films and has been since. So like you do come to the movie expecting that there will be, and because like Jessica Henwick talked, like, we choreographed this whole thing, like they hit like 10 hours of footage of this fight. Keanu Reeves is still an accomplished martial artist, and like you cut that stuff to ribbons and then you shake it with the Bourne cam, and I'm like, this is disappointing. This is disappointing.
All, I'm glad I'm not the one who feels that. I'm glad, because like it's just, again, like those Matrix movies were every single shot was storyboarded, like digital, like they put so much effort. And not that saying that this is an effortless movie, that's not what I'm saying, but like clearly the action wasn't the forefront thought of this movie, which is fine. I would rather take the emotion over it. I don't like watching a Matrix movie that I think has bad action in it.
Sure. Yeah.
And it just kind of bums me out. There's like, and I've watched the scenes multiple times and be like, is it just me? Like, because I've watched so many good action movies the last couple of weeks. I'm like, no, this is kind of shot kind of poor.
I will say, I think the biggest offender of it is the warehouse fight between the Merovingians rejects and the Matrix people.
Yeah.
Because I do still like the Yahya Abdul-Mateen Keanu Reeves fight. I think that fight works.
Oh yeah, that's just straight up martial arts.
I think that fight works. I think the very end of that Merovingian fight with Keanu and Groff in the bottom. That's all fine.
All the single
that
stuff
totally
is
works
fine.
for me, because the whole point is that like the reason that fight works for me is because it doesn't need, like, all the moves are good enough for what it's doing, because the whole point is that Neo doesn't want to fight anymore.
Which is what I love. His power is to defend.
Yes, I love that. I love that his power is just get away from me, because Neo is done fighting. I also love the Trinity's action. Trinity's action when she wakes up at the end, both with the bug stuff and just individual of that. And I think the action scene of the chase is very good. But I agree about like the train,
the big
the
multi people fight,
the Merovingian gang fighting with the crew of the ship is like, if you just focused on only Neo and Smith and I just like came back to them and they'd beaten those people up, I'd be like, that's fine. Because I just don't, I'm fine. Like that's not the focus, and it's not being. I agree. Like Lana has talked about their way that their filmmaking has evolved, and like what used to be important to them, and like how like mathematical the Matrix was designed and very like clear cut and storyboarded every beat, and that's just not their approach in general to films, and so it wasn't going to be them like manufacturing that approach into this movie. And I totally get that, and I agree. Like, I wish that the action was something you could sing the praises of, because that's what you do with Matrix movies. Like, that's very commonplace of what's expected of it, and that's just not what this movie is. And it's like, that kind of is a bummer.
And again, like, I don't like. I'm not a filmmaker. I couldn't do any better. But like, I specifically that Merovingian fight. I think it's bad. I think it's hard to look at. Like, it feels like early Chris Nolan, like
the train fight is awful.
It's so close. Yeah, it is. Like, I was like
close.
Yeah,
I agree on those counts. And the only thing that I can say in defense of it is that, like, I'm glad that it's not the movie's focus, and I'm glad that there aren't that many action scenes in the movie to begin with.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like the movie is trying to fill a quota of something it was never going to achieve anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that, like, those things that aren't good about it are sparingly brief.
Well, that's what I was going to get to. That's what I was trying to get at, which is the idea that, like, it's not something that like actively hurts my enjoyment of the film. It is the only explanation, the only word that describes it is a bummer.
Yeah.
That's really all it comes down to. It's not necessarily me saying like this movie is bad because the action's bad. It's just like, well, that's hum.
Yeah, the positives like enormously outweigh like the bad action scenes, because like everything else I really enjoy. Like, and even there are still some really good action scenes. It's just like the big ones that used to be so cool just don't have focus anymore, which is fine.
What I appreciate is that the film doesn't feel like it's structured around action beats.
Yes.
Which I feel like Reloaded in particular suffers a lot from, where it feels like it's structured around action beats to a degree to its detriment for the consideration of the story it's telling. Whereas this one, I'm glad that this, if from every single step of the way, it felt like you knew this wasn't the focus, and therefore telegraphing to the audience, like, don't focus on this a lot.
Yeah.
This is not important. Your main character knows this isn't important. One of my favorite things about this movie, that since we're talking about that, is that Neo and Trinity don't use guns, and I love that.
Me too.
I just really love
so
that.
many people don't like that Keanu is defensive, and I'm like, you guys are just not reading the movie.
Also, people have been mad that Neo didn't use guns in this movie, and I'm like, he hasn't used guns since The Matrix.
Bro, he's Superman.
He
doesn't need them.
Since then, he doesn't need them. He did it.
You're right. He doesn't use any guns since The Matrix.
He uses the big axe.
Right. So people are mad that he doesn't, and I'm like, I get it with Trinity. Like, Trinity's always used guns, and now Trinity doesn't, and I'm like, they don't need to, and it's not important. That's not the point of this.
Yeah. That's what I like about like the new force push power that Keanu distributes in this film. You know, it's like he didn't have that power in the first. Who cares? It's a different Matrix, different code. Also, he did, just didn't use it a lot, because the idea that he's just tired of fighting. I don't want to fight. I just want Trinity. That's all I want. Just give me Trinity.
Exactly. And that's the movie. And I'm really grateful that that's the movie is what you're getting. And in tandem with that, I'm really grateful nobody dies in this movie.
Me too.
I love that.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody dies.
None of the crew
dies.
Yeah.
I think that's great. I don't think you need to kill any of them.
No.
I think it's wonderful that everybody got out alive. I didn't need anybody to die in this movie. I'm very content and pleased that nobody did.
Yeah. I really like Jessica Henwick in this.
Yeah. I love her in this.
I'm so glad she was in this instead of Shang-Chi.
I love the whole crew, specifically her,
Sequoia,
and Sequoia.
That guy's cool.
And then I need to look up her
There's
name.
Lexi, who has all the tattoos.
Lexi and Bugs, who have a coded queer relationship going on. and then
You have the guy who's a neologist.
the other guy who's a neologist and is into just everybody.
He loves beards.
But especially he's like nervous about not being attracted to Neo anymore. He's like, the beard, the hair, it's really doing it for me.
Yeah, I like the crew. Like just like Matrix 1, like you get just enough where you like everyone. You're like, if they ever made more, like, oh, I would like to see this character again.
You got the other captain, I forget his name, but he's the guy who asked Neo, hey, could you really fly? Like, it's weird to meet a legend.
Oh yeah.
That kind of guy. Like everybody's just great. Like it's very nice because it feels like it reinforces that, like, by the way, this is a time of peace. These people are good people living like a good life in humanity, and they're just trying to help Neo get Trinity back. And I'm really glad that the movie ends without anybody being punished for that.
Yeah. I really enjoyed the new characters. I really love how they've coded this new Matrix, how they can hack into it. Like they have this like projector inside the Matrix where you see the guy.
Oh, like a digital projection.
It's such a nice change to have the reader be there.
How do the mirrors
person
work?
Reading the code of the Matrix.
How do the mirrors work?
So it appears that they can go through just any reflective glass is now how they can escape the Matrix. Rather than
but they gotta hack it. Like he talks about, like we hacked this mirror.
Okay, I guess I just like missed the part where like I know why you're doing the phone thing, but like how are you?
Do you know why?
I don't care.
Running into a reflective surface is a lot cooler than just putting a phone to your head.
It is cool, and like the idea of like the mirror will get bigger as you get closer. Like that one's kind of like silly.
Oh my god, the scene where he goes to the mirror and you just see him reaching out for the pod is so good.
Yeah, I really love that one.
It's so good.
I like the barrier of like this is a science fiction movie, but like love is as powerful as like science fiction is fun, because like as Neo is getting taken away, Trinity's hand rises up.
Yes.
Like again, like they're connected like magnetically. That's how powerful their love is. And that's the kind of thing where like, man, like it's really bold again to make this like this action franchise just focus on like, no, we just want them to be happy together.
And again, like it's one of those things where because we did directly revisit these films, and like there are other people that did, and I don't get how you don't see it. Like Neo and Trinity being in love has always been the thing from beat one of the Matrix. The fact she kisses him to bring him back to life in the Matrix. That's what happens. He is a Snow White story within the Matrix. That's what happens.
I think another aspect of it is, and this is like definitely like what type of person you are. Like, I just don't think some people want this type of Matrix movie. Yeah. And like I think that's fair. I really think it's fair.
Sure.
Like, you know, it's this thing of like how much does like an audience own the franchise and that kind of thing. And like I personally am always excited for the person who made it to continue on however they want, whether I like it or not. Again, like this is very much a Last Jedi situation where like we are doing something fundamentally different that not a lot of people would think to do.
Or even more accurately, this is the prequels. It's just I like this.
Yes, I like this.
I like all of this a lot.
Yeah. I love the world building so much. Like I can't tell you how bad if we don't get any more Matrix stuff about the 60 years of the machine civil war. Like give me a Niobe like comic that like when she's like 50, like when all that shit happened. Like I will read that instantly.
Yeah, I was so moved throughout the whole movie by the like as having rewatched those previous three films and like further and further zeroing in on Neo and Trinity are what I really enjoy about these films. Mm-hmm. Neo and Trinity being in love as the core thing. The fact that the analyst literally in this film calls out like it was never just you. Mm-hmm. It was you and her. The Oracle knew it.
So smart too.
The Oracle did what she did because she knew it changed everything. Mm-hmm. It was you two together.
Yeah.
And the fact that like they play that off in this film makes me so immensely happy. And I guess like if you're a person who just that didn't appeal to you, I do get it. Like I get wanting a particular kind of Matrix movie. Yeah. I'm just so grateful that this is the Matrix movie we ended up.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Sati makes a wonderful appearance again by Priyanka Jonas.
That's maybe one of my negatives, and it's very minor.
It's not. I'm indifferent.
No. My whole thing is that what bothers me is we basically just like completely change what Sati's father was from his original. Okay, so like he was the waste management program for the power plant.
Yeah.
Inside of the Matrix. In Revolutions. Mm-hmm. Now he's the guy who designed the pods that were used to resurrect Neo and Trinity, and I'm like, oh,
big upgrade.
Like, and that just felt like. I mean, she could have just done it because, like, her dad thought Neo was nice.
Yeah, we didn't need the connection.
He didn't need to have been murdered because he made the pods.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like, for real, it could have just been, like, Sati's, like, I've been doing my best to try to help from the outside. Like, they didn't need to bring up the dad stuff whatsoever.
Yeah, I just thought like his dad was a totally fine character as was. Like, I didn't think we needed to make a Death Star.
I still think
engineer out of him.
The real world to Matrix hijack of brain stuff is radical.
Yeah,
that is such a cool idea.
The whole escape of taking Trinity out of her pod, getting Trinity out of her pod. And going in through the Neo's pod, and then going out through this giant, like, this waste disposal sequence that was clearly there to be like, oh, they woke up, dump.
And Morpheus being like ball man doing stuff.
It's such a cool action sequence. I loved it.
Yeah,
very cool heist.
Sentinels look just as good as ever.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
The film is shot really beautifully. One of my favorite shots is in the moment we're just talking about, where they pull Trinity up out of the goo. It's got like a lot of great blue light on her, but you see the red of the machine that's holding her back. Like, it's just a really pretty movie to look at.
The Matrix until the end is kind of like a bright, like, San Francisco-esque looking place. At the end, when it's about to get restarted, the green tint returns at the Simulate. I don't know if you guys noticed that.
Yes, I did notice that.
It goes back to it for the final images. I'm that's really nice.
Because the machines are going to reboot the Matrix to its previous version.
Yeah, get everyone out.
So the first time I watched it, I was weirded out for a moment, and then I caught up with myself. But I think there's something weird in the structure of like how Smith exits this movie, because after Smith wins, he's like, what's the difference between us is anybody could have been you. Whereas I can be anybody. And then he changes into another person.
Yeah.
Then the bots come in, but the bots were called by the analyst. But for a moment, I'm like, wait, did Smith just re-pull a Smith? Is this Smith just attacking them? And I had to like restructure my brain and be like, no, the analyst called the bots.
He just left the body. So like,
it was just a weird exit for Smith that didn't totally jive with me.
He's kind of like not pointless to the movie, but like they clearly wrote him in because he had to be in there. Like, I guess he just leaves now.
But again, if you're not getting Hugo Weaving, maybe don't put him in there.
Well, my other thing is like him written in this way to be this person who plays the role, unless the role would have been drastically different. I like Groff better for the casting of this role of this producer in this video game company than Hugo Weaving. It's very hard for me to picture him as that persona.
Would it be if it didn't change whatsoever? Would it be Hugo Weaving being like, Tom, I'm handsome? Like, it wouldn't be.
Well, it wouldn't be that, but like I'm just talking like the role he plays in the sense of the company as his boss, and that kind of thing. Like, I feel like that wouldn't quite have the same energy for the modern sensibility of what it's doing that I think Groff is able to do, because frankly, just because he's younger.
I think the younger
I really do think that's important. I think it's important that Jonathan Groff's Smith character is a younger person than Thomas Anderson in the context of the Matrix thing that it's constructing, where his boss is younger than him. I think it is very important for the sense of that creative and adult isolation that Thomas is being put through.
Yeah. That
his boss is a younger, doesn't quite get it, role in his life. And Hugo Weaving wouldn't be able to do that because he's not young.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if he just had a different type of role in the movie.
Yeah.
Right, and like I'm open to that, but like this particular thing, I like that, and I like that discrepancy between them in the context of like the meta narrative of what it creates at the game company.
There's a sweet little Christina Ricci cameo for 30 seconds.
Love her.
Fun.
There's also Martha Jones, guys.
Martha Jones. It was I didn't recognize her the first time, and then at the glasses,
From Doctor Who.
She's one of the people in like the round table talking about what the Matrix means to people.
Doctor.
Oh,
she was the third season companion in Doctor Who.
For David Tennant's Doctor.
Okay.
Yep.
Where do you guys land on the bullet time slow-mo?
Love it.
I like it.
I don't have a problem with it. I think it looks like off, kind of like on purpose. Like it's off.
He's filmed at a different frame rate than Keanu is, and I think that works.
I think it's supposed to be like unnerving. Like, it's not supposed to look natural. Like, people are saying like it looks awesome. Like, I think it's supposed to look like that, like on purpose. Like, like it's supposed to be uneasy.
There's the people who talk about like the thing that baffles me crazy, since we've already brought up. I try not to do this too often, but like the thing that drives me crazy about the criticisms of like, this is bad on purpose. No, it's not. It's also not bad. Just like I don't think that sequence looks bad on purpose. I think it's just it's supposed to, like you said, unsettle you. It's there to unsettle you because you're supposed to feel like anything is possible at this moment, and he is hopeless.
And you're
Right.
just you're seeing like more of Neil Patrick Harris than you're ever supposed to see in real life. Like, it's
Yeah.
crazy.
I think they do a very smart thing of like when he makes the comparison of like nightmares are just us maximizing your output. It works just like this. If only I could catch the bullet. And I'm like, everybody knows that exact feeling that you are just now telling us. That's what he's experiencing.
Mhm.
It's that I can't quite do it, but I should be able to do it moment. I thought that worked totally fine.
Yeah.
I do think there is a discrepancy between people associating with like this is bad on purpose and this is unimportant on purpose. This is framed in a way where it's not relevant. This is more in terms of the action. But I think that people are missing that distinction.
Yeah.
Sabebe is fantastic. I know you brought Sabebe.
I just love all the droids.
I love Sabebe.
All the droids are great.
I have no problem with the fist bumping droid, although some people do.
Luminate.
Yeah.
He definitely feels like the most like Transformers-y, like
People are like Star Wars prequels right here, and I'm like, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I really like how Neo is able to fully accept like Sabebe. Like
It's another one of my favorite moments. Him and Sabebe coming together.
He's like, can I
regarding? Yeah.
Because when they're like, this is the thing. He's like, okay, can I ask it a question?
Yep. Because that's what Neo was always about. Neo was always like, not always, but that's what Neo became about, right? In Revolutions, is that he understood that the machines weren't just all bad things.
And then they got Kujaku, which is like the bird robot. I need more history of like Sentinels, like the robots evolved after the war ended, after the peace. Like, like the new ones don't have to be monsters anymore. We can look like beautiful birds. We can look like Articuno robots.
Right.
Like, I'll take it. I think that's awesome.
We don't have to look like terrifying crab squids anymore. That'd be great.
I really like the idea. Like, I always kind of figured it because when we see in the first Matrix, I believe it is, there's a lot of robots walking around the pods and the fetus farm or whatever they call it.
And stuff.
And I always thought that like every single one of those machines that we see is the equivalent of a person in the Matrix.
Yeah.
So that's actually not totally true. If you dig into the lore, a lot there are ones that are sentient, that are like the programs, but there's also ones that are just drones.
Yeah.
And they're just drones, and they're like radio controlled things. The ones that they throw like bombs, drones, not programs. They don't.
That's why they call them. That's why they call them sentients in this movie, right?
Synthients. So like the programs and other machines are now called synthients, the ones that want to be recognized in that way. But it is an important distinction that like the Sentinels are actually drones. Mm-hmm. They are not. They don't have consciousness. They function like a radio transmitter and a tool for the machines. They are not themselves their own like feeling and emotion kind of thing.
At any rate, I appreciated that we kind of dug more into that in this movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree completely. I was grateful to learn that was a part of the lore because it made me feel like there's a clear distinction of like what is a living being within a machine and what is not, even to the machines themselves.
Yeah. That cool French robot who loved to make strawberries.
Yeah,
cool. I love the idea. Like machine human civilization. That's so cool.
We danced around it earlier, but how did you guys feel about the Merovingians cameo?
Took me a while to recognize him.
I'm not about it.
I wouldn't even mind him, but I also think his speech. It's the only time in the movie where I'm like the sequel reboot. I'm like, this is a little too much for what you're saying. Everything else was fine. This was too far.
So I feel very much the same way. I do find it interesting that the Merovingian scene is the proof positive that people go to when it's like, this is why the movie's making fun of sequels and this whole movie shouldn't exist or whatever. Like they use that much like they use TLJ when The Last Jedi, when Ben Solo says, let the past die. Like that's the bad guy. That's not the thesis of the movie. That's the bad guy having a misunderstanding of the thesis of the movie. The Merovingian wants his Matrix back.
Yeah, he's literally saying like the world used to be better. He's an old man.
I get that. I think the biggest part for me, honestly, that doesn't work for me is the way that it's filmed.
Yeah.
Where like I can feel that he wasn't there with everybody else.
It is 100% he filmed on a different day. He was not there.
And like he's a weird cutaway cameo, and like The only amount I enjoy his appearance really is for the moment when Neo sees him and he goes, "Oh God,
that guy." Yeah.
Yeah.
And like beyond that, I'm kind of like, I don't
don't
care. And I think the worst egregious thing about this is that you go out of your way to bring back the Merovingians exiles and Smith being like, "I found some old friends,"
and they're not werewolves,
and they're not
or
werewolves
vampires.
or ghosts or
They're
vampires.
just like dudes from like the Lion King musical or something. Like
Yeah,
that
I
was
agree.
the only part of the movie where I'm like, oh man. Oh
Yeah,
man.
yeah. I think Sam's absolutely right. The really only good part about that sequence is just sees the Merovingian. Oh God.
Yeah, like I had a peak of interest when he showed up, and then he just started spouting words, and I'm like, first of all, I don't know what you're saying, so thank God I had subtitles on. Because like if you were just watching that, I'm like, you get half. Oh yeah, like specifically, he's like Marc Suckerface and Wikipedia shits, and I'm like, that just sounds like an old person out of touch. To be honest, like that. Mark Zuck, like Facebook has nothing to do with like the Matrix. Like that is strictly just like old man writing a script.
Yeah, I mean, but like, cut him out. Don't need him. You don't need him.
Yeah,
I think like that exact concept was like visually told to us of an assessment of like make you think about it when Neo's in the elevator in the montage and he looks up and he sees everybody on their phones around him.
Yeah.
I thought that was like we've got it. Like there's plenty there for us to dig into that like is good commentary on how we engage with the internet, which is a great thing. Like I don't think we talked about it enough, frankly, in like our long conversations about the Matrix. How important it was that the Matrix was at the real like cresting point of the internet becoming what the internet is now. And it didn't know. And so it was like creating hypotheses, like while the Matrix is like its own thing about like representing philosophy and how we engage with like the sense of ourselves, it was also like a conversation about like we don't know what the future of the digital age is going to be in the wake of the internet. And now Resurrections lives in that thing where we do know, and being a good commentary on how that's affected us and how that's changed us and what we need to value in the heart of that, which was always intimacy and personal touch and love.
Yeah, there's a sense in that montage that I really love. The idea of like, you know, because the Matrix is imperfect, he keeps taking these blue pills because to make the analyst like, yeah, you're not going to notice because if you stop taking these, you're going to notice that this isn't perfect and that you're in the Matrix, and I cannot have that.
Right. I love his glasses, the analyst's glasses.
Me too.
Oh, yeah,
I like when he throws them away when he's just like,
yeah.
So I love the reveal when Neil Patrick Harris turns out to be the analyst and the main villain of the movie.
I clocked it when he showed up in the mirror in the opera house.
Oh,
so like,
yeah.
You're having a traumatic episode, Tom, and he's trying to grab him and pull him through.
Because I was like, because it's funny because it like feels like an early warning system for the analyst to just have a mirror and he's just walking by. He's like, oh no, I'm about to be found out.
But when he like finally comes out as total bad guy, I really love that scene. Also, my favorite part of the movie is when Trinity says, "Stop calling me that effing name. My name is Trilla. That's not my effing name. My name is Trinity." And she starts kicking ass and taking names.
Yeah. Man. Yeah.
Trinity... She still gets her Ducati, which makes me happy that she still gets her Ducati.
She's still a bike lady. Yeah. It's cool because like initially you could see like, okay, like Trinity is not going to be in the movie a lot, so I was kind of worried before we got to like more of it. But by the time we get to the end, like, them just sitting down talking is like so freaking good and like powerful, and like watching that scene like multiple times. This has my favorite score of all the Matrix movies, by the way. If you guys
it's very good.
It's even the movie doesn't even do it justice because people are talking over it a lot. But like if you listen to the score on Spotify, it is stunning. It is truly like, especially their theme, like Neo and Trinity have a love theme, just like Will and Elizabeth. That is just as good, I think. If like it is so powerful.
So I kind of want to touch on this because I was watching. You probably watched this too at some point. Lana Wachowski's interview, like the main one that they did about this film, and that this is the composer who comes from Cloud Atlas and everything. The way that they work is different from how most composers work, which is that they cut the film and then the composer matches it to the final cut of the film. They are in conversation with the music for the edit, so they are also deciding the edit of the film to go with the music rather than having it only be a one-way chain. It's a conversation between the artists of like, maybe if we make this cut here, then the music can come in on this beat.
It's true collaboration.
Yes, exactly. And like that's one of the reasons why Cloud Atlas has such a fantastic score to match its film, and this has such a fantastic score to match its film.
Yeah, the high strings are just beautiful, and like at the very, very top of the rooftop, like when she's like, "This is where my dream ended," and I'm like, "Oh my god, they're about to kill themselves, and that's their happy ending. This is awful." And then they don't.
You brought up the coffee scene. I want to talk a bit about the scene, the two when they're having a cup of coffee together, the tiniest cups of coffee you've ever seen in your life. When they're having the coffees together, it's a very good scene. It's very well paced. It's very well shot. It's seeing like having this conversation of like, you both know there's something here, but you can't quite place it because that's what this Matrix is doing to you. It's making it just out of reach.
A really nice touch I clocked the second watch through is that Thomas Anderson Neo has I don't want to dead name him. Neo has a alert on his phone for when he knows Tiffany will go to the coffee shop.
Yeah, it's almost stalker status.
And it's not labeled that way, but like that's what happens. And then he's like, I need to go get coffee. And I'm like, oh man, that's so good.
Honestly,
the second time, sorry, Ryan, real quick. The second time I watched it, I recognize how unnatural the handler programs were. Before we're told that's what they are, there's the bit where as soon as Neo's in the vicinity of Trinity, here comes Chad.
Hey, what's up?
Yeah. The way that they move in to handle the situation, like, okay, it's getting too much now, which is weird because Jude is also a handler but facilitates it. But it's almost like he needed to like facilitate the meeting so that a kibosh could be put on it by Chad.
He's the instigator, and
because
Chad
that's the important thing is that they need to be kept close, but not too close.
Like get magnets, baby.
Yeah. The older reflections. Thought those were a really nice touch. Get you thinking about like, okay, so what's up here? What's going on?
Oh, what was you brought up something interesting that I wanted to bring up. It's all gone. Okay, never mind.
I got something.
Jude is the handler. I was talking about the handlers interrupting each other, triggering a reason to keep them apart.
Oh, when they're being revived. When they're being
more of their resurrection.
Oh yeah, literally
the resurrection, seeing the inside of their eyes and their brains, and like and when the analyst was like, we couldn't figure out your code, and then they put them together, and then that's when like things got real, and you see him using the powers in real life because
they couldn't figure out how to access the source code that was inside of Neo.
Yeah, and then they realize, oh, it's the two of them. We can hack that. It's like using because. The idea of like Neo and Trinity being the thing together is Neo's always more. If you watch the original trilogy, like Neo's always the most powerful when it comes to Trinity. And in this scene, it's no different. Like he is when they're together, he is awake, knowing I have to protect Trinity, and like that's how he's able to use his force powers in the real world as well. I thought that was a nice touch.
They don't have that much screen time together in this like, you know, pretty long movie, but like again, those few scenes that they do interact together, when she talks about, she tells her husband like, oh, like she looks like me, right? This girl in the game, and he laughed at her, and like that really upset her because like she secretly knows that there's something like that's what's so good about it. Like I think this is the best Keanu's been in all these movies because like he's like both of them are pretty subdued in those other movies because they're trying to be more like subdued action movies. There's obviously love there, but like it is not like heart pounding emotion. This movie is heart pounding emotion. It is the forefront of it, and it's like it's worked so well. Like I can't believe how good Carrie-Anne is with this little bit of dialogue.
That's really is kind of at the heart of the differences between this film and the trilogy, where it's like the trilogy, like the heart of the film, you know, what they had a mission statement with that film to like, you know, philosophy, philosophical musings, you know, things like that. But in this film, they don't care about that anymore. They just want to make a movie that is all love, all emotion, because that was always supposed to be the point.
Yeah.
So like this film kind of putting the final spin of like the reason why everything is different, the reason why this movie is different is because it is a love story. It is a love story of two people who desperately want to bone each other at every point, trying to get back together.
I definitely think my favorite scene in the movie, and it's near the end. It's after it's so like Neo goes to the coffee shop, and it's the ultimatum. Trinity, the analyst is going to allow Trinity to make the choice: stay in the Matrix or go with Neo. But it's up to her alone, right? And all the cops are there, the whole squad's there, and she's walking out. And like the music's playing like the and Chad Stahelski's like, Tiffany, you bitch, and I was like, damn it, Chad.
Well, when they walk in, is my whole theater kind of like oohed, like because it's the analyst. Like the analyst is playing a trick. Like he's making it so that like if they don't show up now, she's gonna turn. I'm gonna lose my thing, and so like bring in Chad. Let's go.
It's just so good, and then that is probably it's not even like the whole action scene. I really love like the 30 seconds of Trinity and Bugs just going back and forth. It's just visually just so stimulating. It's just so cool to watch.
Yeah, I did really like
It
that
is
one.
really good. I think one of my other negatives, and like I don't know how you solve it, honestly. For me, like I really like this movie, so there's not too much I would do to change this. It's just kind of a bummer that we don't get more Trinity in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I stand by that. I wish Carrie-Anne Moss got to do more.
Yeah.
Because I really love her. But I get it. Like I think the whole story kind of works the way it needs to.
Yeah.
It's just a bummer.
And it's like it's such a great ending for them, specifically like her, because like she wasn't the main character of the last movies, and now she gets to be.
Yeah.
She has,
like, there's not a lot you can do unless you get her out earlier. But
then there's nothing.
You
That's
have
the point of the movie.
Yeah.
Either the only other way to fix it is for Neo to be the one who's stuck and her to get out, and she has to go get him.
Yeah.
But we've done that.
Yeah, we're gonna make it a cliffhanger or something. Yeah, you can't do that.
Yeah, I really like the scene at the end with the analyst.
Mm-hmm.
When they're like, we're just gonna change our Matrix. We're gonna make this our world now.
When she kicks his jaw off just the way she said she wanted to kick off Chad's.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's my favorite line in this movie is when can't believe it's real, right? Real. There's that word again.
Yeah.
The analyst is maybe a little overly sexist for reasons that I don't totally click with.
A few lines make sense, but there is definitely like near the end. It's just like, you
can't you control her?
Yeah, like
a lot of that kind of like,
you were such a bitch.
Feel like a good little bitch.
Yes, and I'm like that last line specifically. I'm like, okay, that one's maybe too much. That was maybe too much.
I think there's just one or two too many.
Yeah, like I get you want to make him the bad guy, but like we know.
I feel like
that sexism is maybe a little strange.
Yeah.
I feel like you only needed the bit where he's like, can't you control her? Like that's all.
Yeah. Women used to be. There's a line like when they're frozen, like women used to be so easy to control. I'm like that could have been the last line, and then he gets his ass kicked. But like, no, we got a couple more. Okay,
just kept going. Like they were like, what should he say? How about all of them?
Yeah. And I'm like, that's just a little strange for like a program to have.
Yeah.
Like a program that's not living in the current modern.
I think they just like
adapted. Like
they just wanted an excuse to like cut his throat after, which I also thought maybe was a little excessive. Like he's digital, but like
cool the way that his like body falls apart.
Yeah.
The code. I really like.
Like
that.
when he's getting shot and
injured.
stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Or of course when he gets his jaw kicked off and you see like bits of pixelated code.
Snaps it back. It's pretty
cool.
Yeah. Let me think. Sorry. I wasn't even talking about my favorite part of the scene I was talking about. As Trinity's walking out, they're going to unplug and kill Neo. That was the plan.
Yeah.
So the music's glaring, and Sequoia goes up to walk to Neo with his robot hand to unplug him.
Yeah.
It's just so beautiful. It's so good, guys. That soundtrack is incredible. Like
I love the new neck piece.
The big boy
of him. Yeah.
Yeah, he has more plugs for everything than everyone else because obviously they added new ones because they're like, I guess we should add more to these.
Yeah. We didn't talk about swarms very much. Like that is the new enemy. Like obviously not as cool as agents, but like just having hundreds of people, just bots. Yeah. A sort of swarm mode. Excuse me.
Like he says, like that's this versions of the Matrix. That's their agents. Like we just copied a bunch of people.
Just suicide bombing.
Just easier to just have them not be real people to begin with.
Yeah. It's really wild. It's like a couple's laying in bed. And then a husband just activates and jumps out the window.
Can't imagine.
Horrifying. It's like, man, this is rated R. This is like a Shyamalan movie right now.
God, Shyamalan movie is a good example of this.
I mean, the suicide movies people are dropping. Overall, like I'm like the emotions outweigh the unfortunate like anti-action that I wanted, but it doesn't bother me because that's not what the movie was trying to be.
Yeah, I've been kind of like talking in bits and pieces about it, but I just kind of want to put into like final words, like the idea of like, the code of the one of this version of the one was always two people. Kind of like having that subtext of the original trilogy be text and be the final word on this, I think is really cool and kind of like retroactively explains the trilogy, like, kind of like helps explain more why this version of the Matrix ended differently than the others. I thought that was really clever and I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I've got some notes. I'll start blowing through some, and if you want to elaborate on it, then we can do that. I really love when Bugs is engaging with the modal. We get the key shop reference to the keymaker, which is exactly where we get the back doors that the
Yep,
keymaker
yep.
designed the keys for. I love when Mateen does.
I love her.
Yeah,
I'm
she's
sorry.
great.
I love her. I even love it when she says, "What's up, Doc?"
I want her to be the Iron Fist.
Yeah.
I love when Mateen says, "I am Morpheus and I have to find Neo." I think that's a really great line, but I also think I totally understand where, like, if you are struggling to try and like really capture what this movie's saying, you are pretty much lost from that moment on. I love when he pops back up and when he's taking the red pill and he pops back up out of the door and the agents see him, they're like, "Agent Smith," and he's like, he starts laughing. I think that's a really great beat.
I really like the concept that you can free programs. Even this agent, just give them the pill and you can free them.
Yes. I think Jude as a handler has a really great like sick line where he's like, "I was raised by machines." In describing the Matrix, and I'm like dude bros have said this to Lana Wachowski for sure.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. The adult sense of isolation and the lose-lose that we talked about, I think that's really, really pervasive and strong throughout this film. I think it's done really well when when he tells the analyst that he feels he's either having another breakdown again or he's living in a computer-generated prison again. And he's like, those are the things. It's one of those two things, and they're both terrible.
It's wild that he wins a game award, like an actual real, like the video game awards, a trophy, and then immediately just kill himself because he won an award.
Yes.
I'm like, man, that's your life. Like you're successful and you win an award. You're like, I gotta go. This is can't. Nope.
I need to stress again that I think the montage of the suffocating repeated conversations about the Matrix and everything tied to that, the whole White Rabbit sequence, is incredible. I think that's a genius montage sequence. I can watch that sequence all the time.
Yeah.
I think all the visuals of it, all the storytelling beats are good. The way that it's just the date, like months are going by and the same things are being talked about over and over and over again.
That song White Rabbit is also cut in a way where like certain parts loop differently. It's not the song one-to-one, and it uses it really well.
I love in that sequence when Neo is hitting the mirror and he's just laughing after he dumps the blue pills. He's just like, and I'm like, oh my god. You also get Sati appearing working in the little shop there. Yep. Good use of flashbacks in general throughout this film. I think they're well paced and timed and hit those right emotional beats.
I thought that they were going like after a while they kind of stopped doing it, but then they come back and I'm glad because I really like it. Is really. Again, it's time. Like something seeing like Trinity exit somewhere and then flashes back to a movie from 25 years ago. And like, oh shit, that's cool.
Yeah, the part where like she turns and you see that other moment when she turned away.
Yeah.
It's like, your heart.
I love it.
I love the coffee shop bonding between Neo and Trinity, specifically her talking about hating her husband for not respecting her, seeing herself inside of the game. Mateen is excellent. When Morpheus is bothered to be called an experiment. When he first encounters Neo and he's like, "You wanted this, you made me for this." That's when I get a little bit of the Smith, and like that's the only scene where I feel like I get some of it. He's just like, "You can't be mad that I'm here. Like, what are you doing?"
I wonder how much
just shoves his arm through the mirror.
I'm
so curious to see
that Agent Smith thing feels like something they probably should have cut if they're not going to do a lot with it.
When Groff gets the gun and awakens into Mr. Anderson, that's a great bit.
I love it.
I really love the way they visually do deja vu, bringing him out of the shootout into the analyst, and like it kind of like melts away. Yeah.
That was so cool. The second time I watched that, I realized that like this is happening in real time. This isn't we're just seeing like the after effects. It's like the analyst is pulling him out of that fight.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. He's pulling him away. I love the genius of the new Matrix being able to acknowledge itself in a way of saying it's not real. That's the best way to be the Matrix, is to just be like, bro, what do you think? You're in the Matrix?
Yeah, the best way to destroy the Matrix is to make it boring.
Right.
That's how you win.
To make it mundane, yeah.
Make it mundane.
I think there's a great discussion with Morpheus building to him taking the pill, where he hints at the concerns there have been over not finding him. I think that's all done very well, like how they've been looking for him. They specifically, Morpheus references that some people believe that maybe he like betrayed them and was always in league with the machines. That's like there are still those dissenting discussions about the one. I think is really cool. I love the design of the chamber that's holding the two pods for Neo and Trinity. I think that's really well designed.
Me too.
I loved in general the expansion of the Machine City. We get like the big whale looking like machine kind of thing. Like there's all kinds of crazy shit.
I love the new design for their ships. Like how it has like part you see like the hovercraft machinery and then like part machine.
It's like a tail,
flying. Love it.
This movie is 10 out of 10 because Bugs says, "What's up, Doc?"
I love
I
that.
can't believe they got away with it and it works.
It works.
Yeah.
There is that, like, again, this is specifically Morpheus says that line where he says that he's a combination of Smith and Morpheus. He's like counter programming that was more than a little crazy making. Like there's something that should be there, and I feel like it's just under explored or under characterized.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. Ultimately, though, I like him a lot. I think he's really good.
Yeah.
He's
fun. Yeah.
I love that we get the classic Matrix music beat when Neo uses his pushback force abilities, and that's pretty much the only time we hear. But it gets the like I think that's really good.
Mm-hmm.
They took your story, something which meant so much to so many like me, and made it something trivial. That's the specific line from Bugs that Brandon was referencing earlier. Is a really good, like, this is Bugs talking as the fans of the Matrix. Like this is who that should be appealing to. We talked about that.
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to go through my notes as well. The next page is all just Matrix Online notes.
Ooh. Not all seek to control, just as not all wish to be free, is I think a great line about the sentience. This is what he's saying in response to like why the machines are free, why they're wanting to not work with the idea of what the Matrix is. He's like, not all human beings want to be free, not all machines want to be controlled.
Yeah.
Or
be oppressed.
There's a parallel between Zion's fall and the fall of humanity in the Animatrix that I found interesting.
Yes, I think that's really, really good.
Yeah.
I think that the Animatrix also still adds a lot of good text even to this film.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I really like that Lexi is the one who adds the bit when they're saying, like, Bugs is saying to Neo, like, we don't know how to get Trinity out. Like, we've kind of used our one Hail Mary pass. And then Lexi is like, yet. We don't know how to get Trinity out yet.
Be positive.
Yeah. I really like that. I think that's a good beat.
The whole bit of like Neo coming back and speaking with Niobe, which we talked a little bit about, but like speaking with Niobe and having the moment with her is really, I think, really good because there's a lot of like world building and character building between Niobe and Jessica Henwick, Bugs. So having the two of them like having that history, you kind of feel that, and then like Neo is like, great, I don't want to put anybody in trouble, give me a ship and I'll just go get her. Like, let's just do that. It's like, nope, can't compromise what we've built here, can't compromise that. I'm sorry.
Right.
Love it.
Yeah, I love Niobe having that discussion with Neo and pointing out the silence and that the sound design is so good that up to that point in the movie you've been getting noise all the time, so that silence really, like, it lands for you, it really hits.
Yeah.
I love Niobe's story. I'm so glad Jada Pinkett Smith got more in this. I'm really happy for her. I love her telling the story of how she didn't believe for years until like she kept waking up and never hearing the alarm.
Yeah.
And just every day waking up to silence, and how grateful she is to
Neo. And it's cool because if you're somehow someone who didn't watch the Matrix movies and you're watching this, you get just enough because you see the flashbacks of her at the fall of Zion. And so you're like, I was there and like and blah blah blah. So like I know what needed to be done and stuff. And I think that's cool that they brought her back.
Yeah. Niobe being comforted by a female partner as Bugs goes away. Again, a little bit more queerness added into the film.
I'm just gonna pretend that Z
and
Link died and Z just had to hook up with her.
Oh, sure. Here's the line. It's when they're having the moment where Smith is describing what he wants and why he can't have Neo go there, and Neo says, well, that sounds like conflict. And Groff says, inevitable? Doesn't have to be. Like, he goes into the Hugo Weaving cadence for inevitable and then goes back to what he's doing as the new version of Smith.
Right.
That was the specific. I did write that down, and I did like that a lot. God. Yeah. American originality mattered.
Books used to be better. Like, yeah, okay, all right, Grandpa.
Yeah, that was the part that like people. It's frustrating. People are just like, "This is what the Matrix is about." No, that's what the bad guy's saying. It's not what it's about. Shut up.
Yeah. I really like when Smith says, "You've lost something, Tom. You're not what you used to be," and he says, "You're right." And like the answer is Trinity. Like I love that. That's just the sense of what's going on with Neo right now.
The end with the two of them flying together. Oh,
come on!
So good.
Oh, so good.
quietly yearning for what you don't have while in fear of losing what you do.
Yep.
That's a great line from the analyst describing exactly what he's built the entire Matrix around.
Yearning.
I love the concept of the fail-safe, that like if the analyst plan goes wrong for even a moment, the machines are like, then we're going back to what the Matrix was before.
It's a good place.
We're going back to exactly what the original plan was. It is a good place. And the analyst is too cocky to evacuate Trinity. He's confident he'll get Neo back, so that's why he's not like just pulling the plug on his plans.
They do explain that like if that doesn't happen, then Trinity is likely dead, because like the analyst will not cop to the idea that he's had Neo and Trinity and just never told the humans. Like he can't do that. So he's like, if this happens, Trinity's going in the grinder.
Yeah.
All the captains volunteering is a great moment.
No,
They all
good.
step forward. Yeah, I thought that was
Good.
really great.
Good moment.
The concept of the bugs bypass is really cool. We've talked about it visually, how great it is. I just wanted to highlight that. I think that's really cool that like the concept is like we can actually move her
consciousness
away as long as we make sure she is maintained being plugged into the Matrix till we get her on the ship. And the way to do that is that she has to be constantly plugged in. So they have to plug bugs in while they unplug her and then replug her into the portable unit to get her into the Matrix. So like she never technically leaves the Matrix in a way.
Yeah.
So weird, but
she's
so
like
cool.
But she's like with one conscious between those two people.
And they use the other hole in their neck to kind of have that bypass together.
It's like this is like the one hole, and then you got the regular Matrix hole.
The
one
emotion.
hole.
Yeah.
The one hole.
The emotion when Carrie-Anne Moss says, "There's a part of me that wants to say, what the hell took you so long?" When she's not fully awake yet,
Yeah,
but it's there.
Yeah,
I love that.
Because like that's the whole the two of them at the coffee shop scene is like so good, because it's like it's there. They just can't. It's just out of reach.
They know it's there, but like it's one of those things where, like the leap is too scary to make. Like it's all or nothing. Like man,
because like Neo has been conditioned to be like, look, they got there's two things. You're either going crazy or you're in the Matrix again. And it's like,
I guess I'm crazy.
They both suck, but which would you rather be?
Yeah.
My name is Trinity, and you better take your hands off me. Is awesome.
She gives Chad a good old
moment.
back,
That's a good fist pump moment. Yeah. And
that was pretty cool. You did the thing with that was pretty cool.
You're a poser.
The analyst has this whole thing where he says that he's confident that people will prefer no sentimentality or freedom.
They don't want the sentimentality.
Exactly. Like they don't want that. I think that's I think that all that conclusion from the moment that they leap off the roof, and it's Trinity who's able to take them away. And when they come out of it and they look at each other and they hold their hands is so nice.
It's very nice.
And then them getting to both be the one, and them coming back in and with the sunglasses and the look, and people are like, well, this is the movie I wanted the whole time. And I'm like,
and again, I think it is really nice to be like, because like I think there is a version of this movie where Neo and Trinity do die. But like that's not the story that like. But
this is so much better.
This is so much better because it is a happy ending, because both these characters did have sad endings before.
Right.
And it is just really nice that like in a big Hollywood thing that like you can have your cake and you can eat it too in this situation.
100%. Like maybe this might end up going down as like my top 5 favorite last shots of a film ever. There's the shot of them like dance flying in the sky, and like you can clearly see the big smile on Trinity's face.
Oh yeah,
as she's turning to grab his hand, and like the way that they twirl into the sun and everything. I'm like, that is beautiful. And it's just so. It feels so good. It doesn't feel like a big action beat. It feels like such a good like look at these two people completely in love, being able to fly into the sky, twirl around each other, and take off, and it's wonderful.
You have the first Matrix movie, which is cool, but like this one, it's
there's
a
bit more
like
powerful. There's a bit more of an action.
No, yeah.
There's now he can mess up the world.
No, yeah.
Whereas this one is like they've already won. It doesn't matter what happens from here.
Yeah,
they've won because they got each other out.
We don't need another movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't think we were ever getting one. Like I don't agree with people who say maybe you guys say this and I don't know. But like I don't agree with people who say the sets up the next one. I think this is a close-ended story.
No, I think this is the end.
I mean,
no. I did not think walking out of this movie. I did not come out of this movie thinking we're gonna get a Matrix 5. I'm thinking that's it. They're together. They're happy. There's peace. There's nothing else to do.
the cynical Hollywood version of me saying like this is a franchise, they're always looking to do another franchise.
Sure.
The problem is they allowed Lana Wachowski to make this movie. I just don't see a world where in the next 10 years you make a follow-up to this movie without Lana Wachowski.
That's the thing is like I think this is the end of the road for the Wachowskis. I think this is the end of the road for Keanu
This could
Reeves
be
and
the
Carrie-Anne
end
Moss.
of the Matrix story. Again, 60 years of prequel stuff
Not only that, like there's all kinds of things you can still. We've just gone through the comics, the Animatrix.
Yeah.
There are stories to still tell within the world of the Matrix. There's just nothing else that you should be telling that changes what the core of these films were.
Mhm.
You can tell plenty of stories that work around the outside of those films.
And you know what?
And I think there's plenty of interesting things to explore there, but this is rock solid.
Yeah, just like, you know, you have your new stuff and your classic stuff, like you can get like in the future you'll get a Matrix movie that is they're in the old Matrix. Why are we in the old Matrix? It's a mystery. That's cool. Don't tie to anything with this stuff.
I want a new video game.
Sure, absolutely.
Like that's the thing I've been clamoring for. The idea of like, you know, we really only have those 3 low budget video games, but like I want a AAA video game of the Matrix. I think that'd be awesome.
I want the heist movie you don't know is set in the Matrix. That's set like 10 years before they pulled Neo out.
It's still the best idea.
So
ever.
just like right in the mid 80s, and then an agent like appears, and you're like, oh no!
It's still the greatest idea, man.
Yeah, I really. Oh, I forgot what I was gonna say again. All right, let's move on.
You think you really like this movie is what it sounds like.
Yeah, I do really like this movie.
Yeah,
I think it's really beautiful that Lana put in the credits that this was for mom and dad. Love is the genesis of everything.
Absolutely.
I think again, like this is really nice because this is such a personal work, and I love it. I love this movie.
It really is like, and it's hyperbolic, but like in this situation, it is. This is like the most like expensive like art blockbuster maybe ever made.
Yeah,
like this is a incredibly personal movie that's anti-sequel, anti the thing you want us to make. And I'm really shocked that they are allowed to make it. That Lana was allowed to make this movie that's basically like shitting on Warner Brothers for wanting to make something worse.
I think
it's awesome.
I think the Halloween. I think the sorry. I meant to say, I didn't want to say Halloween 2, but I get from what you've talked about with me, Sparks, that this is similar. But like the TL, like The Last Jedi, I don't think this film is an anti-sequel. Honestly, like I don't think this film is against sequels. It's against sequels that misunderstand the point of the original.
It's against the norm of sequels.
I think it's against sequels just for the purpose of like making another product.
Yeah,
I think
that's what I mean.
I think it's it's very much for sequels that are made with a reason, and like Lana had a reason to make this movie.
Like this is like out of everything we've seen in the last couple of years, like this is a sequel. I'm like, all right, cool. Like this one made sense. It wasn't just to be made.
That's the thing that I keep coming back to with this film that I struggle with, and like I'm sure maybe you guys see it, but I don't. Like when people, I might cry a little bit when people talk about like how cynical this movie is, and I'm like I just don't see it. It's not cynical. In my mind, this is the most hopeful and optimistic film I've seen in years. This movie is the farthest from cynical that I've seen in many years.
And honestly, Brandon, a lot of that comes down to just the type of person you are. Who there are people who just like are more cynical than we are, and like when you see a movie like this, you latch onto the stuff that you want to latch onto, and you ignore. Again, like you ignore the bugs section, you only latch onto the people around the table section talking shit about the Matrix.
I mean, and again, like this isn't everybody. Like I think there is valid criticism of this film that's out there, but like there are people who are out there who are saying like on platforms who are saying I wanted my Matrix 4 to be about them finally being the machines, and I'm like, but that was never the point once you got to Reloaded.
Yeah.
Like that was never what was supposed to happen. That was clearly not what they were structuring, and like you're just fighting what the story was telling you the whole time. If that's what you're for, which you know that could be fair. Like they might not have liked Reloaded or Revolutions either, and like they just wanted the like Terminator movie, and I get it.
Yeah, I think it is a situation where a lot of people don't see how important the love story is to those original movies, and if they haven't seen them in a while, watching this, it might be a little too much for you to be like, I thought the Matrixes were cool action movies, and this is just about like dumb love. And like, we don't feel that way. Obviously, emotion is very important to us in storytelling, but this is a sequel to, again, some of the greatest action movies ever made. So like, this is one of those situations where I don't feel as bad if people hate it.
And I do get like being jarred by the visual language being different, but the fact is that like the artist behind it has changed so drastically.
It's been 20 years.
And is only half of the original team.
Yeah.
But like Lana personally has changed as an artist so much from where they started. And they've talked a lot about like why the Matrix was the way it was and what they were expressing when they were making it and what they express now. And like, it's unfair to expect that to be the same. Just like it was unfair to expect George Lucas to make the exact same movies when he made the prequels.
Oh yeah. The most successful sci-fi movies of all time. Yeah, do it again. Like, absolutely. Yeah.
It was unfair to expect them to have the exact same stuff going on for them.
And the longer, again, like if a new Matrix movie came out, 4 years after Revolutions, like it would be a completely different situation. Like this is almost 20 years removed now. And I think just people really just wanted another Matrix, and that's fair. I personally think you did get one, just maybe not the one you personally wanted.
Right.
Why I keep going to the Last Jedi analogy, where it's like I think it's a perfect Star Wars sequel. It's just not the one you wanted.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not the expectation that you possibly wanted. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, just to drive my biggest point home, I just don't see cynicism in this movie. I just don't.
Yeah. I think you're not looking in the right place. It's there, but there's the counter.
No, but I don't see it as the point. It's not the point.
Not the point. Yeah.
It's not the point. There is cynicism in this movie. The cynicism is the cynicism over consumerist product being created rather than art being put forward.
Yeah, yeah.
But the movie itself is a representation of that very thing being pushed back against.
Yeah.
So like it's saying like that doesn't always win the day. It definitely wins the day sometimes, but it doesn't always win the day.
It kind of reminds me of Tomorrowland also, where it's like the idea of like this is a hopeful future. This is a future where, let's take the film analogy again, where it's like, this is looking at like making The Force Awakens versus making the Matrix Resurrections, where it's like, yeah, okay, this can be seen as a product. This can be seen as art, and like we believe that in the end art will win out.
Yeah.
Like we believe that is the case. It's no longer people on Twitter yelling about like, oh, this is just consumerism now. There's nothing like that. But Lana Wachowski is saying, no, I don't think we're in this ride forever, guys. This is our future. Our future is this. Our future is not this. And like I appreciate that much, like I appreciate in Tomorrowland, where it's like our future is not destruction. Our future is peace.
Yeah. It is an unfortunate thing that this movie is so positive. And one, a lot of people don't like it, and two, it hasn't made that much money. So I don't think many lessons will be learned, unfortunately, with this movie. As much as
I'm very interested in how it's going to land, just as Reloaded and Revolutions were reevaluated like 10 years on. I wonder how people will think about Matrix Resurrections when we've had another decade of a lot of sequels that this one could have been, that are a little soulless, or just in general films that come out that are big blockbusters that are soulless.
Specifically where we are now in this generation of the MCU and all that stuff, I think in the future we will like this movie so much more, like as a collective. Like we like it. I think it will get that cult classic, like, oh no, this is better than we give it credit for.
And then we'll be there being like, I always knew.
Episode 270.
I think there will be a reevaluation down the line of this film for the context of like looking back at like, look at all the movies that people haven't enjoyed that would have been what they thought they wanted this Matrix to be, and what this Matrix was actually saying about that at the time.
Like comparing this movie to Shang-Chi, like that's not right. This like they're not the same type of movie. As much as like, it's called The Matrix, and The Matrix is a kung fu franchise, like this has more common with like dramas and like soap operas in a way, which is not a bad thing, but it's like it's more like,
I almost kind of would prefer there was like no action in this movie.
Honestly, yeah, like all the action is my least favorite parts. So
I'm not saying like you have to, but I'm wondering about like, is there a version of this movie that works without the action? I do think so.
I'll tell you what, like you keep like the opening fight, the Morpheus fight, take out the Merovingian fight, take out the train fight, all the rest are fine.
Yeah. I think I'm out of notes. Unless we want to go into the Matrix Online.
No, I already did my time with the Matrix Online.
Matrix Online, which is probably no longer canon.
Not as much as you want.
No. That's the research I was doing, because I was like, is it canon? But like, it comes down to Morpheus. Morpheus died thinking that the machine war could never start up. In the Matrix Online, the war starts up almost immediately after Neo dies.
Yeah.
So it's
his body gets Horcruxed.
It can't be, and unfortunately can't be canon.
Yeah.
Certain ideas may be.
Sure.
Rate it.
Ben, did you have any last thoughts?
Oh yeah, Ben. Hey, what's up?
We've dominated this conversation.
I love the Matrix.
No, you guys saw it. Some of you saw it twice. I saw it when it came out in theaters. I still had a really good time with it. If I had negatives, I forgot what those negatives are. Other than that, I think the only pushback is there were parts of action that I really did enjoy. There was like the final scene with the helicopters with them on the rooftop and they jump and Trinity's the one flying. I thought that was just like, oh hell yeah.
We all agree on that one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
When he moves the missile with his force power, it's so cool.
Oh, that was so cool. That was so rad.
Just on the defense the whole time.
Other than that, I do agree with a lot of what you guys are saying, and I mean, I just don't get why people are constantly saying this movie sucks, this movie's this movie's like. One of the comments I keep seeing online, unfortunately, is like, "Oh, this movie is SJW woke shit." I'm like, no, it's not. This movie is about two people finding each other and loving each other and getting out of a prison or getting out of like a virtual prison. That I don't know. What
wrong franchise to say that about. Wrong franchise to say that about. The Matrix
always has been.
Yeah,
always has been the wrong.
Is a trans allegory from 23 years ago at this point. Yeah, that movie. It's all
either way. This movie is. I really enjoy this movie. I don't understand why so many people say, "Oh, that." Although I do see like, why some like a lot of the people who do hate on this movie are air quotes dude bros.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I get enough of the criticisms to be like, yeah, okay, you know, if you don't like this movie, you don't like this movie. There's a specific segment of people who don't like this movie that I'm like, you're wrong.
There are people I love that didn't care for this movie, and I get it. I understand why they didn't.
Yeah.
Why they didn't care for it.
Yeah. Other than that, I had a blast with it. So, I mean, do you want me to rate first?
Rate it.
I'll give it an 8. It was fun. It was fun, long, but other than that, I was still fully engaged. It answered all my questions I had from the last movie and why this movie was being made. And I was like, man, if they don't make another Matrix movie, I'll be content. However, they make Matrix video games, I'm all for it.
I think Sparks had it right with the Toy Story. Sorry, Patrick Williams, that you were echoing, had it right with the Toy Story 4 comparison.
Mm-hmm. Then I had another one.
I think that's very apt. I think this is a more successful, even version of what that was doing. But yes, I think that's
Ryan,
true.
do you want to rate it next?
I will give it a 9 out of 10. I really like the movie a lot.
Sparks.
It's probably so close to a 10. I'll say 9.5.
Yeah,
because like there are some issues. They're just so minor. I get so much emotional value out of it that it's pretty close to a 10.
I just think of like if I rewatch this and I'm like I just know there are scenes that I'm like I just don't want to watch those scenes and like it doesn't affect me.
Yeah. That takes it down a bit.
It does for me. Yeah.
I put this on my top 10, so obviously I love this movie a lot. I love all the Matrix films. I was very happy with this film. Its message resonated like crazy with me. The message about love, it's just something I needed in life, just in general. And it is very close to a 10, but I think I will.
Brandon, come on, buddy.
I think I will also go to a 9.5.
There we go.
All right. Mag is here. He's been on there. Yeah, he messages a while ago. It's like, just watched. What did I miss? A lot, buddy.
Just rewind the tape an hour and a half.
Yeah, and he gives it a 7.5.
Too low, Mag. Mag, you are not part of the podcast.
No, come back. No, I didn't see that 7.5.
I kid. I'm sorry you didn't like it as much as we did.
Brandon always asks every week for what people's thoughts are on these things. So
I did. Mike Mottola had a bit on the first Matrix that I forgot to read out, where he was like, "It's everything the Matrix Resurrections had to say about itself." I'm like, "Sure, buddy." He's wrong. He's not wrong. And someone else said they really enjoyed it. Sorry, I don't have your thing. Book club.
Book club.